It was a gray, drizzly morning, the kind of weather that muffles sounds and sharpens attention. My house, perched on the lake's edge, had always been a sanctuary, a place to escape the petty squabbles of neighbors, HOA rules, and bureaucratic interference. But that morning, peace was shattered by a familiar, foolish force. The HOA, convinced that they could act as law where none existed. They had arrived early, unannounced, attempting to force me out of my own home. Their motives were simple: assert dominance, intimidate, and test the limits of property ownership. They assumed compliance. They assumed I would cower behind politeness or property lines. They assumed wrong. I was already awake, reviewing the previous week's documents and security footage. My experience as a prosecutor had taught me two key truths. Law, when documented, is decisive. Audacity without authority is powerless. And the HOA had neither preparation nor legal authority. The first knock at the door was tentative, quickly escalating to a forceful push. They were dressed in the standard HOA enforcement attire: vests, printed badges, and a sense of entitlement that filled the air like a fog. Their plan was clear: intimidation through presence. They would not succeed. I opened the door, calmly holding my badge. "Gentlemen and ma'am," I said evenly, "you have no legal authority here. Step off private property immediately." They laughed nervously, assuming my title was ceremonial or symbolic. "We're just here to inspect, to enforce," one muttered, trying to mask uncertainty with bravado. I shook my head and gestured toward the deeds and recorded maps laid out on the kitchen table, visible through the open door. "Inspection requires consent or legal authority. You have neither. You are trespassing." The HOA officers attempted to press forward, one hand on the doorframe, another gesturing aggressively. It was then that I began documenting each movement with my phone and security system. Each push, each step, each attempt to assert control was recorded in high definition, time-stamped, and backed up to multiple secure locations. I walked calmly into the room, standing between them and the threshold. "One more step, and it will be considered criminal trespass," I said, voice calm but firm. "As a prosecutor, I assure you the consequences will be swift and documented. You may want to reconsider." The confidence of the HOA faltered. They hadn't anticipated confrontation backed by legal authority and preparation. They expected a flustered homeowner, not a professional who understood both law and documentation. One of them whispered, "Maybe we should call this off." But hesitation came too late. I pressed the issue further, walking them through their lack of jurisdiction and the documentation proving my ownership. Deeds, notarized maps, local ordinances, each piece dismantled their assumed authority. Their bluff had been exposed. Eventually, they backed away, muttering threats that carried no weight. I documented every retreat, every half-hearted justification, and every look of disbelief on their faces. By the time local law enforcement arrived, prompted by a call I made as a precaution, the scene was fully under control. The HOA officers were ordered to leave immediately, their authority null and void in this jurisdiction. By afternoon, my home was calm again. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, and the lake reflected soft gray clouds. I reviewed the recordings with my family, ensuring that every angle had been preserved for future legal reference. Every overreach, every attempt at intimidation, every false claim had been captured. Karen and her HOA had underestimated both the reach of law and the power of preparation. They assumed audacity could substitute for authority, and in doing so had exposed themselves to legal scrutiny. My home remained my sanctuary, protected by both law and foresight. As the clouds parted slightly, revealing the sun glinting on the lake, I realized this encounter was not just about property. It was about precedent. Any further attempts at intimidation or illegal inspection would meet the same decisive, documented response. Karen and her crew had learned, perhaps painfully, that in my home, audacity meets law, and the law always wins.